So Daredevil Born Again is going to be Marvel's Game of Thrones? Well, that's what head of Marvel Streaming and Television had to say. It appears the head of Marvel Television and Animation, Brad Winderbaum, is doing just that. Let's take a couple minutes to talk about the recently released D23 interview, what he had to say, and what I think this means for this show, because it sounds like New York is going to be full of drama. Now, I don't think it is too much of a stretch to suggest Marvel's biggest project coming to Disney Plus next year is going to be Daredevil Born Again. Ever since the announcement, Marvel fans have been pretty excited to see the return of the Devil of Hell's Kitchen, and once the strike hit and Marvel Studios got even deeper involved in this project, aligning it better with Netflix, well, the expectations have shot through the roof. Now, often before a lot of these projects drop, there is a lot of comparison. It helps drive the excitement and give fans an idea of where they're going with the series, and maybe even the tone. And that's where this gets interesting. Now, during a recent appearance on ABC's The Red Carpet Storyteller stage, Wonderbaum had some updates for a lot of projects. We just talked about the one for Eyes of Wakanda, but he dove into some of Daredevil Born Again and compared its brutality to another series that should give us an idea of how deep they're going, and that's Game of Thrones. Now, in that interview, the head of Marvel Streaming and Television said, and I quote, "Imagine if New York was as intricate and problematic and scary as the world of Game of Thrones. All these forces are vying for control, and it can be really hopeful at times, and really violent at times, and dark. But there's a light at the end of the tunnel if you could just fight for it." Now, when you listen to this and you know what's going on, well, you start to see some of these pieces coming together, and it seems like Marvel is going to go out of their way to define this version of New York City and where it fits in the Marvel Universe in a way we've never seen before. Now, based on the statement, I highly suspect there's going to be multiple factions and some unusual crossovers and allegiances, which is something we've been talking about for a while. One thing about Game of Thrones is there's always pieces moving on the board, and sometimes the enemy of my enemy is my friend, and then other times they just revert back to being your enemy. This is something we've been sensing from this show for a while. We know the Muse is going to be the main villain, but Wilson Fisk's reign over New York will just be beginning, and I think that is the long-term storyline. I highly suspect the story this season is going to see some of these weird allegiances come and go, and different factions within New York work together. This version of Wilson Fisk that we're getting in Daredevil and was part of the Netflix series, well, he does not want villains like the Muse cutting up and murdering people in the streets. That's not the way he works and not the kind of power he seeks. And obviously Matt Murdock also would want to prevent the murder of innocent people. This is going to drive some of those alliances. Now, this is going to extend beyond Daredevil and Wilson Fisk, and also include characters like Frank Castle, who we know is a big part of this. I'm sure the New York City PD, as well as other criminal factions that we've never really been exposed to within the Marvel Universe that might finally come front and center. The old Daredevil series gave way to a lot of various villains that were the overriding antagonists for a large part of all of those series. For Jessica Jones, it was IGH, but for Daredevil, it was often the Hand. And since we know Marvel Studios is going to be picking and choosing and taking what they want to continue with, I'm pretty sure we're going to see the return of the Hand as one of those factions in the upcoming season. Now, what other doors this opens up to other areas of the Marvel Universe, that's the huge question. A lot of Marvel's street-level villains are pretty closely tied to Spider-Man. Some of the ones that come to mind for me are Tombstone and Silvermane, and we've heard about both of those potentially being part of Spider-Man Noir, absolutely suggesting that Sony has some of those rights, and this could kind of tighten the world of Marvel's street-level heroes to villains pretty much just associated with only Daredevil or maybe even Luke Cage. Now, comparing it to Game of Thrones in brutality sets the bar really, really high, and Marvel's going to have to deliver on that. We know after the strike, they made a lot of revisions to the show, and everything that we're hearing says that the show is much more aligned with the original Netflix series, but it sounds like Marvel is trying to double down on what Netflix got right. That was part of the violence and brutality, and we might be in store for one of the most violent and TVMA-rated series from Marvel on Disney Plus yet. This would make a lot of sense since Marvel has made room for things like Logan and Deadpool, so there's no reason why this can't be super dark and give us the versions of these characters we got on Netflix that totally delivered and didn't hold back in their storytelling, action, or consequences. something I think is going to be key this season in some of those alliances. Obviously, we're following all the Daredevil stories. It's already October, so we're only about 4 months away from this series dropping. I suspect Marvel is going to be giving us a lot in the days moving forward. I'm really hopeful for a trailer sometime in the next month or two, at least a teaser, and the return of Daredevil and Marvel's street level universe is absolutely going to play big in the future. Tell me what you think in the comments below. Now, before you take off, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button, ring that bell for all the updates, and make sure you get every notification because we do daily Marvel and DC content and we don't want you to miss any news.